32 Days to the Apocalypse. Micro Shorts, perky and bimbo face, she's Mikyung and is always trying to talk to our MC, who's just a Japanese-looking cook who's a worthless poor guy with no parents and no social skills. But she wants to know if he has the so-called status window that everyone is talking about. Ra laughs and says that she's too crazy and naive. Those things aren't real. Now that's a lie because he does have one, and one that is perfect for him, the personal dimensional gate, a portal that opens in his room identical to a game where he's a top player. The internet has been talking about an incoming asteroid, and connecting the portal to it, he knows that it will definitely hit, even though people are saying chances are very low. Don't look up government at play. When he received it, he instantly decided to prepare, got some food, a bag, and dived. Inside it was just like he imagined. His phone was out of range, so he gets a pen and marks his first day there. The portal 100% works, so now is time for a real preparation. The asteroid incoming will bring numerous diseases, including something that will destroy all metal on Earth. People infected will turn into zombies, and in a few days humanity will be thrown back to Stone Age. After 6 months the diseases will cease, and that's when people will have to act fast to rebuild and repopulate. I'm available for the second necessity if they need. But our main character has a huge advantage with his portal. The disease will probably not cross it. So he used all the money he saved to purchase all types of supplies, weapons, solar panels, and even a lot of food. His store is already closed. And of course, Blue Shorts is saying that she's sad, but she knows he has a status window and must have used to make a lot of money. Now I don't know how that girl knows it, to be honest, and better keep a distance of those crazy ones, but looking at her face saying see you next time, okay, maybe one night wouldn't hurt. Seeing her leave, our average Japanese knew that if he wanted he could bag that baddie. It was a tough decision, but saving the world and his life came out on top. So now inside the portal, the first thing he does is to go practice some bow skills, because in this world you can't get extra status by leveling up. The only way is through the result of training and hunting. Pure Rock Lee. He pulls back and sends the arrow, and just like he did in the game before, hits it perfectly. He's thinking, I'm Legolas or something, but doesn't matter because for now he can only shoot 5 times a day. Since he has girlfriend's soft hands, now to the plan, he need to figure if he can really hunt monster and of course create that juicy apocalyptic base to stockpile supplies, and nothing better for now than some sun apples. Then bro goes to find some Indian tracks. Someone shitted on the ground and he sure is a goblin, and because he's not close to a base he's sure this dude is alone. Don't know how, but dude began tracking the dude with his shit. It was late night when he found a senior goblin. You gotta be lucky to cross 15 years old as a goblin, to be honest, and for RC who just got in this world that was the perfect target at level 1. Soft Hand prepares the arrow and sends it like a bullet to the goblin's arm, but the senior dude threw a rock at his hand. He instantly picked his scimitar and the forest turned into United Kingdom 2026. Just pure knife fight festival. My bro was the British citizen unfortunately, and took the first stab to the leg, but no worries, because he rushes Lil Goblito and tackles him to the ground. Lil swing and he went to finish it, but holy old Greenie was able to grab it. He tried to say goblinish stuff but too late. First kill and 2 pints. But why is he riding the goblin like that? Come on, Soft Hands. Good thing Greenie dropped some herbs that are used to make a healing cream. But right there my boy saw a red trout. That could only mean that he was in an owlbear's region. And look who just came to say hi. Bro could only think that he's coked even though the apocalypse hasn't even started. But wait, because he ain't scared, bro knows all the patterns. Since the owl wants to protect the food, he only needs to avoid it. So he gets into position and shouts for the ugly creature to come at him. The monster claw came straight at him, but bro went full Levi and dodged, jumping into the arm and climbing it. Then he used his flashlight as a flashbang, since the owl has the eye adapted for the night. Boom, bro's back at his room in the morning. After getting out of there, and the best part, even though he's exhausted, he's able to bring sun apples from the other side of the portal to his home. Right after is time for the usual encounter with Babe Mikyung. Even when bro went to eat some noodles, she found him and went there to talk to him. This girl knows something we don't, because she's being all tingly, friendly, bubbly, trying to get some info about his status window. But our Jai just keeps lying to her, saying that he unfortunately has nothing. He ain't gonna put himself in risky for this baddie. Revealing his status window or any info about his skills is the same as giving up a hand. The temptation is huge, literally, but this is no different than begging to be devoured in the apocalypse. Nah bro, being devoured by her is exactly the goal. So after lying to Babe, he got back to collect more supplies. The items he had bought finally arrived. After putting away everything he wouldn't use at that moment, he fully gears up to complete the objective that still remained, finding a place to build a hideout inside the portal. He remembers having seen a suspicious place during the previous hunt and decides to investigate. Looking through the scope, he notices kobold footprints and soon gets excited, thinking he had a plan to take that hideout. He starts getting ready to set fire to the cave entrance, but just as he was about to light everything, 2 kobolds appear. The protagonist doesn't waste time and immediately pulls out the axe, chopping off both their heads at the same time. With that, he levels up and gains 4 more points. Now that those 2 have been dealt with, the MC lights the fire and soon the kobolds that were still sleeping wake up because of the smoke. The plan is to leave them confused so he can eliminate them all at once when they come out, and in that, the first one is taken down without even seeing what happened. The other 3 that were left see the protagonist, try to rush him, but they're also taken down without difficulty. With the kobold problem solved, Kang takes a look at the status window, and that way we get to see all the boys' stats. Level 1, 14 points, 8 health, 10 strength, 7 agility, 8 dexterity, 5 perception, and currently under the effect of exhaustion. The MC thinks that even if he doesn't receive status points for leveling up, he should soon unlock new system features, if he keeps leveling. Above all that, the objective that was missing had finally been completed. Now he had a safe place to set up a hideout. Of course, he just needed a complete cleanup first. The next day, the protagonist was completely worn out, thanks to all the time he spent cleaning the hideout. He then decides to test the effectiveness of the ointment he could make with the items he found after hunting the goblin. After applying the ointment, the MC starts thinking about how he's been taking risks to raise his stats, and comes up with an idea to make his life easier, but it still isn't revealed to us. What we see next is him getting ready to build the hideout in the place he cleaned the day before. And just as he was carrying some boxes to the portal, Mi-kyung shows up again, saying good afternoon. She invites the protagonist to get a haircut at her salon, and he goes. While she cuts his hair, she talks about how she found out the status window was related to survivor life. All the Awakened say they've played at least once, and Kang, pretending to be surprised, asks how she found out those things. That's when a blonde guy covered in tattoos shows up, who apparently is Mi-kyung's informant. This guy's name is Oh In-hak, and he's had a fight with Kang in the past. In-hak comments that he came there to tell Mi-kyung a few things. He says he's looking for a guy along with his group, and the nickname of the guy they're looking for is Kimbapshoa. At that, the protagonist realizes they're after him. In-hak asks Mi-kyung if she had already decided whether she was going to join his group or not, while he keeps grabbing onto her, until Kang says he doesn't know what they're talking about, but they should finish this later. In-hak even turns to complain, but the MC already releases his aura, telling him to get lost while politely, saying it's best not to, unless he wants to be humiliated like last time. The blonde guy trembles on the spot and decides to leave. Mi-kyung breathes a sigh of relief, and Kang, quick on the uptake, already gets her number, saying it's just in case. In-hak tries to start trouble. Back home and with his hair cut, the MC decides to take a look at what the people on the internet were saying about him. As he expected, a bunch of people were insulting him in every way and saying he had deleted all the videos and run away, just like the blonde guy. The MC had deleted everything long before the game started becoming reality, because he was frustrated, but everyone thought he wanted to keep all the information to himself. After seeing 1% of the love and affection spread across Twitter, the MC felt disgusted with humanity and went to mine in his cave. Using everything he had learned from Minecraft, he fixed up the entire hideout, until he stepped outside to wait for the cement to dry, and ran into a bizarre skeleton that started to glow and set off a massive explosion. The protagonist jolts awake after the explosion, thinking he'd barely managed to escape. Opening the status window, he sees that he leveled up and gained points, so the system considered the skeleton defeated. He opens the portal and goes back home to treat his wounds and rest. Sometime later, thinking he needed to increase his perception, the MC decides to try to get some items. He remembers that before the apocalypse, there are some events that with luck could yield some items for him. The event was an incident where an orc's body was found on a mountain. The MC thinks he has to prepare quickly for this incident, but first he runs into Mi-kyung again, and in that meeting comes the least obvious news of all. Mi-kyung is awakened. After she surprised a total of 0 people, Kang plays dumb, saying he hasn't awakened yet and is jealous. Thanking her for the consideration of telling the truth and all the information she knew, the MC says goodbye to her. Back at home, he buys a drone to scout the forest and rents a car before going to sleep. The next day, he started preparing some materials to hunt the orc, put everything inside the rented car, and headed to the mountain. When he got there, the protagonist started searching, but the rain and fog on the mountain made visibility very difficult. When he was almost giving up, a monstrous roar came from behind him. He turns around and sees a red orc, which has a guaranteed skill drop. Preparing for the fight, the protagonist immediately lights a flare and throws it to draw the orc's attention. When the orc turns to attack the flare, Kang opens the portal in front of it, slips under the orc and into the portal, and tosses a flashbang. The orc hadn't even finished understanding what happened, and the MC already pulls out an orange peeler and starts giving it a bunch of mosquito bite jabs. The monster tries to retaliate with a strike that the MC dodges by ducking, and he also takes the chance to land another mosquito bite jab right on the ankle. The orc feels it immediately and drops to its knees, but the protagonist doesn't give it any opening and pulls out a bomb to shove into the orc's mouth. The explosion goes off, and Kang is about to celebrate when he takes a heavy punch to the middle of the chest that sends him rolling away. The monster, on fire, starts walking toward the MC, who already begins to lament, thinking he's going to die like that. But since the story can't end there, the orc falls to the ground, and Kang levels up, gets 10 points and the skill Survival Instinct. When he gets up to look for the monster's drop, his wrist starts to glow, and he receives a watch that increases perception by 2. Having gotten everything he wanted, the protagonist starts thinking about what to do with the orc's body. In the game's story, the government covered up the information about the incident, but he wonders whether that would be the right thing to do. If he just leaves the body there, it could turn into a skeleton and blow someone up. After thinking for a while, the MC decides to bury the body inside the portal, and as he digs, his new skill activates. Survival Instinct activates during the exhaustion effect, boosting combat instinct, stamina regeneration, health regeneration, and perception. But as soon as the effect ends, the MC is paralyzed for a while. Thanks to the new skill, he quickly finished burying the orc and went back home. The next day, the MC receives some of the weapons he had bought and a visit from his good friend Mi-kyung, who invited the protagonist to eat with her. Kang asks what she wanted to talk to him about, and she replies that she wanted to trade some information. Since the last time they met, he had said he would start researching the survivor lifestyle. After they eat, the MC shows Mi-kyung the game community to explain the basics of the game to her, without revealing that he was awakened. After finishing writing down the most important information, Mi-kyung comments that she turned down the offer to join in Hack's group, and that she wanted to form a group with the MC. Hearing that, he grows thoughtful. His goal is to reach level 10 before the tutorial to unlock the system shop. The problem is that, in Survivor Life, the monster's level rises with the player's level, so if someone walked along with him, they would just get wiped out without being able to do anything. When he tries to refuse, saying that she could turn into a zombie, Mi-kyung says it's not a problem, revealing that her power is teleportation. She finishes by saying that even if she can't form a team with the MC, she at least hopes they can cooperate as allies. Sometime later, we see Kang back at his hideout, building a barbed wire fence in front of the entrance. Realizing that the curtains he had put up at the entrance wouldn't keep the place warm, he decides to go to a carpentry shop to order a door. On the way back, he was jotting down some places to loot after the apocalypse started, when he ran into an old friend. This guy's name is Oh Hyung-jun, and he owns a gym. They chat, and Hyung-jun says he's been worried because he thinks the world is going to end. One of the guys at the gym told him about the status window. At first he didn't believe it, but the guy started levitating in front of him to prove it was real. The protagonist says he still hasn't awakened, and Hyung-jun says he hasn't either. He goes on to say that the guy from the gym said he was going to a broadcasting station to get famous with his new powers. With that, the protagonist realizes that soon, the awakened will become public knowledge. On top of that, the MC's friend says there was a shootout in Yoido. Not only that, but all the news about it is being deleted, and the area where it happened is sealed off by the army. When Hyung-jun finishes telling him this, the MC runs off, saying he remembered he had to do something, and that he'll visit him later. Back home, the protagonist starts organizing his information. The controlled news one day after the orc incident is far too suspicious to ignore. Everything is too close to the game's story, especially after the MC tried to change that scenario. He comes to the conclusion that there may be someone behind the government who also has accurate information about the game. Analyzing the main suspects, the MC can only think of the creator of Survivor Life or one of his 3 veteran friends who used to play with him. Realizing there was no way to find out who might really be working with the government, he decides to set it aside for now. 2 days later, the protagonist's hideout already looks like a proper bunker, all organized. With everything ready for the time being, he starts using the drone he bought to scout the surroundings. Not far from the hideout where the MC had fled from the owlbear, the hole where he had buried the goblin had been dug up, and several suspicious footprints were around the spot. That meant his hideout might not be as safe as he thought. Sending the drone back, he decides to prepare and go scout a few places in person to get more details. But just as he was heading out, he received a notification from one of the motion sensors on the fence around the hideout. Going to check, he finds tracks from a group of goblins and decides to follow them. When the MC finds them, they were fighting over food, so the protagonist takes advantage and lands a direct hit on the leader's head. The goblins barely realize what happened, and another one already gets a jab to the forehead. The ones left charge at the MC, who pulls out the axe and takes down 2 more. 2 others try to shoot darts at him, but the helmet and vest protect him. Seeing it didn't work, they start surrounding Kang, who throws a flashbang on the ground as soon as they rush him. Taking advantage of the 4 being stunned, the MC cuts them all down at once, gaining 16 points and reaching level 4. Survival instinct activates again to dig another hole, and the goblins are buried. Taking a look at the loot, he picks up a few more healing items, and in the leader's loot, he finds a frog that produces the paralyzing poison the goblins use. With a source of paralyzing poison, the MC can not only start using it on weapons but also train his resistance to it. He names the frog Jajo, and with that, the system registers the frog as the protagonist's pet. Exploring a bit more, the MC finds a water source near the bunker that he hadn't seen with the drone. Near the water source, he also finds some plants growing there that can be used to make the healing ointment. The next day, we see the MC feeding Jajo. He decided to raise it at home because the climate was more suitable. After storing a few vials of the paralyzing venom, we see that the MC overdid it a bit with the amount of ointments he made, so he decides to take some to Hyung-jun. While they talk, Kang asks why the gym is so empty. Hyung-jun says that the guy from the broadcasting station spread some information to other gym members before leaving. After that, everyone decided to use the gym as a base and started preparing for it. The MC questions him about it, since the game guides made it clear that groups of more than 6 people attracted monsters. Hyung-jun replies that he knows but that he can't abandon his gym members, and asks what the MC plans to do. Kang says he's still thinking, so Hyung-jun says that since he isn't an awakened one either, if he has nowhere to go, he can join them too. Little does he know. Right then, they hear a scream out of nowhere. Kang runs to see what happened, and when he looks out the window, Mi-hyung is lying on the ground. She starts to come to confused, with the 2 of them worried. The MC asks if she remembers what happened, and she replies that she only remembers someone attacking her out of nowhere. Hyung-jun gets irritated and goes to look around to see if he can find who it was. Kang gets worried and asks Mi-hyung if she managed to see who it was, but she says she didn't see anything, and that it was as if someone had covered her eyes. He then says that if anything like that happens again, Mi-hyung should teleport immediately, and that later he'll give her some personal defense equipment. It's explained that everywhere has infiltrated trolls, but in Survivor Life it was worse, since the game's moderation never did anything about it. This stance of ignoring troll reports, combined with the fact that it was already an unpopular game due to its absurd difficulty, is what sealed the game's failure in just 1 year. Anyway, the main reason only 4 active players were left in the game was that they had hunted down all the remaining trolls. The reason for this explanation now is that the trolls seem to have started acting in real life. To prepare for that, we have a 13-day time skip in which the MC trained his combat skills. As the final preparation for combat, the MC was supposed to choose a main weapon, but he was still unsure which one to pick. A blunt weapon would be ideal, since the most efficient way to deal with them is to crush the spore on their head. That's why he intends to buy one as soon as he unlocks the system shop. But he wonders whether that would also work well in combat against humans, especially those with physical powers. While thinking about what to do, the MC hears a scream, and apparently something got hurt near the bunker. When he gets to the place to check, he finds a huge wolf lying there. He wonders whether it was a lone wolf that got lost or whether it had lost a fight there. When he goes to examine the wounds to try to find out, a pup headbutts him in the back, knocking him to the ground. Seeing that, the MC realizes the fallen wolf must have been that pup's mother. He thinks about what to do as he starts digging a hole. If the she-wolf's body stays there, being a monster, it will turn into a skeleton, and even if it doesn't, it will end up attracting some monster. Kang remembers the pup he had when he was younger, and remembers how he felt when he lost his parents, so he decides to take the pup. He explains to the pup that he'll let it visit its mother whenever it wants, and that he'll take care of it until it grows up, but in return he'd like the pup to help him. While offering a piece of meat, he asks the pup if it would like to go with him, which it quickly accepts. He then names the pup Dingo, and the system registers it as the protagonist's pet. A little after that, we see the MC training Dingo, and with that, we can see that he's really very smart, obeying all of the MC's commands masterfully. Realizing how lucky he was to have found him, Kang gets really excited, until his phone rings. When he looks, he sees it's Hyungjun, who tells him to search levitation on the internet. After doing what his friend said, the MC finds several articles talking about a guy floating, calling himself the first superhuman in the world. The article also says that he talked about the apocalypse that would be coming soon, with zombies and monsters. In the comments, we see several people not believing any of that, and in the awakened community, we see many of them cursing the guy for exposing everything to everyone. After seeing all this, the MC decides he needs to make even better use of the time he has left, so he calls Dingo to go explore immediately. The main reason he decided to explore with Dingo was to prepare for the next event, the Hobgoblin incident. For that, he needed to make sure Dingo would be able to track goblins properly. Besides that, he also needed to know how the pup would behave in combat. As they walk, Dingo starts complaining after eating a plant. The MC goes to check it and realizes it was black pepper, saying he would definitely reward the pup later for the nice find. After catching some fish, they decide to head back home. The next day, we see the MC's restaurant completely stripped. During an apocalypse, it's natural for survivors to try to loot the businesses they see, so it was necessary. As the MC looks over the place, Hyungjun shows up, commenting that it looks like everyone had the same idea and that he had also emptied out the gym the day before. Kang soon asks what Hyungjun is doing there, and he answers by flicking the MC on the forehead. He says the MC hasn't talked to him anymore, so he decided to go there to check if Kang was still alive. Seeing the flick, Dingo starts growling at Hyungjun, who soon asks since when the protagonist has such an adorable husky. Kang then replies that it was his new pet, and asks again why Hyungjun went to the trouble of coming there. Hyungjun says he was genuinely worried about his friend, especially because he found out who attacked Mikyung. He reveals that the ones responsible are Kim Chol-jun, along with his group, which Owen Hak is also part of. According to Hyungjun, that group has a hideout at the foot of a mountain, not too far from there. The MC asks how his friend found out all of that. Then he says he asked Han Jin-sung, the guy who appeared levitating on the broadcast program. Jin-sung said he even met up with Kim Chol's group, but everyone in that group was a bunch of creeps, which made him refuse the offer to join them on the spot. Putting those events together with the women from the gym starting to leave, saying they'd been called by a group of awakened, Hyungjun was sure they were behind the attack. Taking advantage of the topic, he also comments that the group he had formed with the gym members dropped to only 4 people. Kang is surprised since just a few days earlier, there were around 20 members. Then Hyungjun explains that his group only has 2 awakened, so it's natural that people look for better opportunities. He doesn't judge them, they're looking out for themselves, just like he looks out for his daughter. Their conversation is interrupted by a cry for help coming from the MC's phone. He checks the location and, looking grim, asks Hyung to watch Dingo for a bit. Elsewhere, we see In-hak telling Mikyung to come down from where she was. She screams saying she refused to join him, but he keeps chasing her. He says she should reconsider, but the other 2 say they'll do it their way. Kim Chol-jun tells her to come down while he's still being nice, and Ma Jung-in says no one is going to hear her in that place. What they didn't know is that the protagonist was already hidden there. He gets ready and lands a rock squarely on Kim Chol's shoulder, making him drop the baton he was holding. The other 2 try to see who did that, but the MC is already there and delivers a solid hit to In-hak's jaw. Already going after the last one, he dodges the attack and makes him kiss a wall. When Kang turns to ask if Mikyung was okay, she screams warning him about the blow coming from behind. The attack grazes past, but it still damages the MC's helmet. To make things worse, the other two start getting up and In-Hack begins to unleash electric power. The MC looks a bit uneasy, but when In-Hack is about to fire power in his direction, Dingo appears and bites his arm. At that moment, Hangjun also shows up on the phone with the police, and the three decide to retreat. When Hang is about to ask if the MC is okay, Mikyung teleports in, all worried about him. Seeing his two friends worried, he starts remembering his friends inside Survivor life. Pulling himself together, he asks Hangjun to accept Mikyung onto his team and says he has something to do, saying goodbye to them. On the way back home, Kang goes back to improving the bunker. As he builds, he thinks about his friends. As much as he wants to trust them enough to tell them about his power, that isn't possible. His ability was made to be used alone. He needs to level up and gain skills. That became clear in the fight with the Mountain Gang. With the heating system installed, there's little left for the bunker to be complete. Sometime later, we see a news report about the asteroid that will start the apocalypse. It is explained that thanks to Jupiter's orbit, the asteroid was split into two parts. The protagonist remembers that in the game, a smaller piece of the asteroid fell into the sea first, resulting in zombies arriving at Gamcheon port. Taking a look at the awakened community's reaction, he finds a post by someone familiar. My Dream was the nickname of someone famous for being kind to newcomers, and who had also played with the veteran group a few times. This player is looking for the 4 veterans, saying they built a bunker with 3 years of supplies for 5 people. For now, the MC decides to just save that post. He has no intention of being the first to reach out, but he wants to stay alert in case one of the other 3 veterans does. Returning to the bunker, we can see that the last upgrades have been finalized. Feeling extremely satisfied with the result of his hard work, the protagonist finally decides to rest, but he is interrupted by Dingo's barking. Rushing to check what happened, we discover the reason for Dingo's hostility, a group of sharp-fanged wolves in front of the bunker. Watching Dingo's reaction, the protagonist deduces that these monsters were responsible for taking the life of his companion's mother. The problem is that, at that moment, he has no chance of winning a fight against these monsters, and if he tries to run to get an appropriate weapon, he will be attacked immediately. The only way to escape this situation is to make the enemies back off. That may be possible, because these monsters are cautious and always follow the alpha, who is the one who decides whether it is safe to attack. If Kang can scare it off, they will all follow it. Like any kind of wolf, this monster is also weak to strong smells, and luckily, the protagonist has pepper spray. Even if the spray won't kill it, at least it will drive it away from the bunker. The problem is that, if the monster decides to push forward, the MC has no way to escape. That's when Kang gets an idea. He throws the knife toward the alpha, which gets irritated and leaps toward the protagonist. When the monster is almost there, it slams face first into the portal. The MC opens. Closing the portal after the plan works, he uses the pepper spray, which stuns the alpha. Since this MC doesn't forgive a stunned enemy, he immediately rushes in with the orange peeler and gives the alpha's eye a little pat. After that blow, the alpha decides to flee, and all the other sharp-fanged wolves follow it. Dingo starts rubbing against the protagonist, who collapses in relief at having survived. Petting him, he promises he will avenge his companion's mother. Sometime later, we see Kang returning home, lost in thought until Hyungjun sees him and greets him. This time, Hyungjun is accompanied by a female friend from the academy, and comments that she had been wanting to buy some weapons, not believing in the disaster of the iron collapse. She spends some time staring at the protagonist until she finally remembers where she saw him before, at the restaurant he used to own. Realizing she still hadn't introduced herself, she does. Her name is Cho Soo-young, a doctor. Finding out she is a doctor encourages the protagonist to explain the basics about the start of survival life, just as he had done with his friends before. After the whole explanation, she believes Kang. She senses the certainty with which he explains everything and asks if he was an awakened. Quickly, the MC denies it, but is surprised by how sharp she is. We then see her asking to become his friend, and we cut straight to the next day without an answer. The protagonist prepares an improvised spear inside his bunker. Calling Dingo, he says that day they were going to take revenge on those sharp-fanged wolves. When they finally find the monsters, the MC realizes that only 4 of them are left. Using the scope, he finds out what happened. The owlbear found them first. Without the alpha to coordinate them, and with their numbers drastically reduced, eliminating these monsters becomes an easy task. One of them notices the protagonist and charges at him, but is stopped by a net. While the creature was immobilized and frightened, the MC tells it not to worry, because the end will be quick. The other 3 wolves notice the protagonist. He runs to hide, and they all charge, chasing him. One who came from above was stunned by the pepper spray. Another who came from the side immediately gets stabbed by the spear, and the last one, coming from the other side, gets headbutted by Dingo. Revenge successfully completed, and as a bonus, Kang reaches level 5, gaining 9 more points. In addition, a new trait was added to the MC's power. Now the portal is invisible to others and allows him to see and hear what's on the other side. Excited about the new upgrades, he wonders how strong he could become by leveling up further. 2 days later, the protagonist used the drone for more detailed observations of the surroundings. The only danger he found was a goblin camp about 3 kilometers away. Judging by its size, that camp probably had hobgoblins, so it would be hard to wipe them out for now. With the area's safety secured, the protagonist decides to map out the area around the bunker and dig a trench to increase the effectiveness of the barbed wire fence. He also bought even more materials and tools, watched the mountain gang's hideout, and rented a motorcycle and a mini excavator. In addition, Joyudok kept producing paralyzing poison constantly, both to train resistance and for the weapons. But in the present, the MC is looking at a post in the awakened community saying that Survivor 1 joined my dream. With that, his main suspicion about who might be behind the government falls apart. Survivor 1 has always been an item collector, so it would make sense to demand tons of items from the government in exchange for information. Kang thinks there's still a possibility it's a bluff, but he doesn't know if my dream would have a reason to do something like that. Thinking about it won't get him anywhere, and if Survivor 1 really joined my dream, a change of plans is necessary. The protagonist disguises himself and goes to an internet cafe to create a new account to contact my dream. They decide to meet in a VR chat room to confirm their identities. My dream asks whether the MC who was using that ridiculous avatar was one of the veterans. All mysterious. He says maybe yes, maybe no. So my dream decides to ask a few questions to confirm. First question. What is the maximum height a werewolf can jump? Answer. 3 meters. Second question. What is an owlbear's weakness? Answer. Bright lights. Third question. What are the forms and stages of a zombie's evolution? Answer. Zombies aren't capable of causing infection. They just consume nutrients until they turn into ghouls. But before that, some of them become enhanced zombies. Finally, my dream asks how many events there are before the apocalypse. Kang refuses to answer that question, but it was already enough proof that he was one of the 4 veterans. He asks to speak with Survivor 1, but my dream refuses, saying he couldn't talk to him at that moment. After he starts saying a bunch of disconnected things and says goodbye out of nowhere, the protagonist realizes it was a trap. My dream was just buying time to trace the MC's IP address from the start. Right then, some men in suits enter the internet cafe, blocking the exit. The receptionist girl stands there looking kind of lost, but their boss already grabs her by the arm and uses a mental power, ordering her to stay quiet. Noticing this, the MC heads to the bathroom and opens his portal to escape. After searching the whole place and not finding the protagonist, the boss thinks he has movement powers and orders the goons to search the surrounding area of the entire region. Witnessing the whole situation, Kang makes a decision. He gears up and decides to solve this problem. While my dream thinks about which of the veterans the protagonist might be, he is caught off guard from behind, already taking a cut from the spear coated with paralyzing poison. Immobilizing him, the MC says the apocalypse hasn't started yet, so the PK system probably isn't working yet. In other words, there shouldn't be penalties if he finishes him off right there. Realizing the situation he was in, my dream stops resisting, and the MC takes all the belongings he had on him, telling him to consider it the price for trying to deceive and control him. Kang makes it clear that if there's a next time, he'll finish him off and then knocks him out. After my dream's group left, the protagonist also went back home and started analyzing the items he took. From his ID, we learn his name, Kwon Kyung-joon, owner of a golf club and 3 bunkers. Checking some information on his phone, he sees one of my dream's hypotheses about playtime influencing how good the power an awakened person gets is. For now, there was no way to prove that theory, so the protagonist just focuses on training with his new toy. When he starts hearing several notifications, checking the awakened community, he is certain the second event before the apocalypse has begun. Arriving at the place with Dingo, they start looking for the goblins. Finding some bodies, the protagonist realizes the police officers are still alive, but they are paralyzed and had their weapons stolen. He calls emergency services for them and gives instructions on what to do with the goblin bodies, and right after that continues searching for the rest of them. If the police officers' weapons were stolen, then there is a chance there is a gold goblin in the group, and he can't let someone else get it. Elsewhere, we see 2 extras fighting a group of goblins. One of them is an unawakened acting as a tank, while the other is an awakened with telekinesis powers who is throwing rocks at the goblins. They trade a few attacks until one of the goblins manages to hit the awakened. When the goblins rush them, arrows start finishing off all the goblins, saving the extras. Seeing our Legolas, he thinks that thanks to those extras, he can confirm that other awakened didn't make it to the mountain in time. With that information, he can start carrying out his plan. First, he draws a goblin's attention to lure it to the portal, and then finishes it off slowly, so the screams draw the leader's attention. Seeing the subordinate taken out with no one around, he will have the other goblins search the area for whoever is responsible. That's when more goblins will also move closer to the portal, so the MC can take all of them out at once. Everything was going well, until the hobgoblin runs into the protagonist. With no other choice, Kang decides to go all in and blocks a heavy blow that sends him flying backward into a tree. At the moment the MC was about to be finished off, his survival instinct activates and he dashes toward the gold goblin, landing a headshot on it. After storing the gold goblin's loot inside the portal, the MC lands 2 lead pellets in the hobgoblin's arm as it was running toward him. With the monster down, the MC starts making several cuts on it, winning the fight, reaching level 6, gaining 18 points, and obtaining the territorial perception skill. This skill allows the user to perceive and react to everything within their field of vision. Finally, the protagonist also received a pair of gloves that increased his dexterity by 2, but soon had to enter his portal to escape a search team that was approaching. The next day, we see him waking up and regretting having activated his survival instinct. Checking the gold goblin's loot, he finds a mithril knife immune to the iron collapse disaster, a bunch of night vision grapes, and a few other useful items. As soon as the MC finishes checking his new items and leaves the portal, he is bombarded by messages from his friends worried about him. Wondering whether at any point in his life he has ever been this popular, he decides to go to Hyungjun's academy. Arriving there, he is welcomed by Michung and Hyungjun, who introduces him to two members of the group he still didn't know, Lee Kyung-hoon and Kim Bo-ra. They were worried about the protagonist because of that morning's news. A doctor who dissected one of the previous day's goblins warned everyone to prepare for the apocalypse. In addition, the president said he would investigate the whereabouts of the creator of Survivor Life and would begin listening to the Awaken's opinions. Knowing all this, Hyunjun asks Kang what he plans to do, since he was thinking of taking advantage of the information the MC has. Before the protagonist can say anything, Hyunjun interrupts, saying they shouldn't do that. He says goblins only give points and that, if an Awakened caught one, they would go up 1 or 2 levels at once. So it would be better to just focus on stockpiling supplies as they are already doing. Seeing the amount of nonsense this guy is saying, the MC tries to step in, but is interrupted by Hyunjun again, who asks whether he has ever played Survivor Life. Still hiding that he is awakened, Kang replies that he hasn't, but that he had a lot of information from the community. Hyunjun mocks him, saying it's not good to be dependent on the community. Realizing there was nothing to be done, the protagonist decides to leave. He hates giving information to that kind of troll. His friends try to convince him to stay, but he says he has something to do and that he'll see them later. Sometime later, he meets with Cho Soo-yeon. She wanted to meet him to hand over some medicine and antibiotics, as well as leave her address with him. The two say goodbye, and the protagonist heads off to do more shopping. Taking advantage of the expansion he made to his protected area, he built a warehouse outside the bunker. While the world began to grow increasingly chaotic, more and more arguments were being broadcast on TV. The UN began holding emergency meetings, and NASA realized that the calculated trajectory for the asteroid was wrong. Now the world knew it was only a matter of time until those 2 chunks of asteroid hit Earth. A total of 4 days passed, and now the protagonist is at Gamcheon Port, the place where the next event before the apocalypse will occur. After checking that there was no one nearby, the MC begins preparing for the event inside an abandoned building. It is still possible that he could turn into a zombie there, but it is impossible to escape the spores, and there are only 5 days left until the apocalypse, so it makes no difference whether he transforms that day or later. When he receives the alert on his phone, he realizes the event has begun. A tsunami sweeps the entire coast, driven by the asteroid's impact. Jumping from the abandoned building with his boat, the protagonist heads toward the vessel as fast as he can. Arriving at his destination, he doesn't feel anything wrong with himself, so he thinks he really is immune to the spores. As the MC charges at the zombies, it is explained that in Survivor Life, zombies are different from the conventional kind. Instead of infecting those they attack, they see everything as prey and have the ability to grow stronger the more they eat. The protagonist easily takes out the 2 zombies that greeted him, but he doesn't let his guard down. He doesn't want to make the same mistake he made fighting the orc, so he advances carefully, eliminating every zombie in his path. When he hears a gunshot, he decides to run toward it to help a possible survivor, but he arrives too late. Leaving the area after taking what he wanted, another person passes by the protagonist, heading toward the vessel. The next day, seeing the latest news, Kang decides to contact the government to tell them the exact day the apocalypse will begin. After sharing some information, the government's response was immediate. The military took control of everything, and a curfew was put in place. The protagonist thinks the response was perfect. If he had known the reaction would be like that, he would have shared his information earlier, but now there's no point dwelling on the past. The apocalypse is inevitable, and he has already made up his mind. He is not a hero, just an ordinary person who wants to survive. Inside the portal, we can see how much Kang's base has evolved. Thanks to the lockdown, he devoted all his time to the other world, organizing his things, digging his moat, and patrolling with Dingo. One day before the apocalypse, a problem arose. A group of beetles came in through Dingo's dog door and took 2 sweet potato jellies, leaving a shriveled grape as payment. The protagonist would like to go after them immediately, but he couldn't, so he just locked the dog door to Dingo's sadness. Leaving the portal, he goes to meet Hyungjun's group. Even with the lockdown, everyone gathered at the MC's request. At that moment, we are introduced to the last member of the group, who still hadn't appeared, Yoo Hyun. He is an awakened, but he didn't play enough to have relevant information. Besides, he is an electrical engineer. With the introductions finished, they begin an exchange of information. Most of it was already known to the protagonist, but it was important that the others knew. His goal was to use the shared information to state the day of the apocalypse, without revealing that he was a game veteran. Kang hands everyone a detailed guide to the game's tutorial, and says he got that information because he watched Kimbap Joe's videos. He apologizes for hiding it until then, and asks everyone there to follow the instructions to the letter in order to survive. On the morning of the next day, we see the protagonist training his resistance to paralysis, gearing up, eating together with Dingo, and waiting for the broadcast we saw at the beginning of the story. As expected, the final moments before the start of the apocalypse were like hell on earth. People fighting, going mad, and taking each other out without any kind of remorse. While Kim Chel threatens the protagonist who was watching from the rooftop, the government leaflets begin to be dropped by planes. Making use of the time before the rail collapse disaster, the MC grabs his motorcycle and heads out to loot a few strategic spots near his home. Revving the motorcycle to weave around the zombies in the street, the first stop is a pharmacy, sledgehammer to the door and portal open. Dingo only sees supplies being thrown inside. Heading to a construction supplies store, the place was closed and secured. The protagonist was prepared for that with a cutting torch, but the noise attracted the zombies to him. Normally that would be a big problem, but the experience on the Russian vessel made the protagonist realize that newly turned zombies are easy to deal with. They get stronger as they absorb nutrients, but these still hadn't had that opportunity. So even someone inexperienced would have an easy time dealing with them, as long as they knew their weak point. The MC keeps taking several of them out and right after that returns to the original objective. The next location would be the local police station, but the armory had already been looted by the time he arrived. Luckily, as he was leaving the place, he found a body in the parking lot with a backpack full of items. The next loot spot was a motorcycle parts shop, where he picked up an off-road ATV and a few other items. A short break inside the portal to deal with the debuffs that fatigue was causing, and right after that, get back to looting. But, as he was leaving while thinking about where he should go from there, In-Hack shows up along with Mashang. Dodging an electric attack, the protagonist hides inside the portal. In-Hack tells Mashang to keep providing cover because of the zombies, while he goes after the MC alone. Kang thinks the tutorial still hasn't started, so the PK system shouldn't be working yet. Even if it is, the first kill only gives a warning, so it wouldn't be a real problem to put an end to this problem now. Meanwhile, In-Hack enters the shop looking for the protagonist, and is caught off guard by him, as he grabs him from behind coming out of the portal. While holding him down, the MC asks why he's being hunted and finds out it was all because of Mishang. Annoyed, Kang kicks him in the back and says he'll give him one last chance. He tells him to stop preying on the innocent and move on. In-Hack mocks the MC, saying he only went there to loot, so the two of them are equally selfish and only care about themselves, while trying to attack him with a crossbow. The protagonist easily dodges the bolt and thanks In-Hack, saying it was true. He's an egoist just like him and simply didn't want to admit it. After that, he finishes In-Hack off and gains 50 system points. As he pulls himself together after finishing someone off for the first time, Mahjong shows up and sees the blonde guy's body on the ground. In shock, he doesn't even notice when he's surrounded by zombies. The protagonist just watches, thinking that as much as he doesn't like any of that, those guys were trouble. They extorted innocents and only cared about themselves. No matter how much he thinks about it, that kind of trash didn't deserve to live in the apocalypse. The PK system was implemented 3 months after the launch of Survivor Life to reduce the number of trolls. It was a good intention, but the regulation was terrible. The first kill resulted only in a system warning, and the third marked the player as a PK. On the second kill, if the player hadn't caused it directly, the system would judge the participation rate, then he could be forgiven. Being a PK provided large amounts of points and attributes in addition to allowing you to steal the victim's skills. Of course, where there are positives, there are also negatives. Besides the fact that a PK was forced to keep killing players, if 3 or more players were in the same place, a barrier would appear and they would be forced to fight. That might seem advantageous for the PK at first, but at higher levels, with only veteran players, it was a trap for the PK himself. And as expected, that system still isn't working in real life. Even so, the protagonist doesn't intend to go around killing people. His personal rule is only to answer injustice with injustice and live peacefully. Storing the items from the 2 corpses inside the portal, he sets off to finish his loot route and after looting everything he could, goes to a supermarket. At the beginning of the apocalypse, zombies would immediately concentrate on any place where they could consume nutrients easily. For beginners, that would be a place to avoid as much as possible, but for a veteran with thousands of hours of gameplay, it was a perfect opportunity to level up a lot. Pouring gasoline in front of the market and signaling Dingo right after, the MC waits until his companion draws all the zombies outside. Throwing a lighter toward the gasoline, the two enter the portal to protect themselves from the explosion. The result of this plan is a jump to level 11, 116 points, and a new upgrade to the MC's power called Dimensional Slot. Knowing that the iron collapse would soon begin, the protagonist goes back inside the portal to store his things and swap his equipment for non-metallic ones. He still wasn't sure whether his portal would really be able to block that disaster, so he repositioned it far from his base, and decided to wait and see. Everything began to collapse instantly, but the iron spheres he was carrying inside the portal remained intact. As long as he stayed in there, that disaster wouldn't reach him. Returning to the base, the Beatles came back wanting to trade some roots for more sweet potato jam. The protagonist was even going to get mad at them, but they were so cute that he let it go. He explains to the Beatles that he doesn't need more food than he already has for now, so he'd like to trade the jams for other things. That's when the Beatles' leader offers to trade ores for the jams, and the protagonist agrees. After signing a contract through the system, he hands some jams to the Beatles, who are happy and leave to collect the ores. Carefully checking the loot he got, he found some good items in In-Hack's bag, including a ceramic knife. Seeing the quality of the items, he's sure he needs to check the Mountain Gang's base, even if he decides not to attack them. While checking some hard drives he took from apartments he raided, he discovers that Mi-kyung had already been an idol. He decides to delete everything there and heads off to look at the shop that was unlocked at level 10. The interface seems to be the same as the game, and when items are bought, they appear out of nowhere. That makes him wonder whether a certain bug still works. As for the new dimensional slot, it's a subspace that stores up to 5 items. Thanks to this upgrade, the protagonist no longer needs to keep carrying his weapons on his body or keep pulling things out of the portal. With his things organized, he decides to leave to start the tutorial. The night is so dark that it's impossible to see anything, so the MC decides to eat one of the night vision grapes. Now that he can see clearly, he starts looking for a safe place. While we're told more about the tutorial, one of the features of Survivor's life is that the player is rarely warned about the start of events. The tutorial is an exception to that rule. Since the wall of zombies serves as a start announcement, the way to trigger the wall of zombies is to be seen by one of them and to pick up a specific tutorial item. And the way to spawn an item in the tutorial is to stare at an empty spot long enough. However, if the item is picked up before it fully appears, it will be duplicated, and that is a tutorial-exclusive bug. After the tutorial has started, there are 2 ways to complete it. The first is to eliminate all the zombies in the area, and the second way is to find and defeat the tutorial boss. We see the protagonist running non-stop. The tutorial always has a checkpoint in some building within 3 kilometers of where it started, and the boss only appears after reaching it. The building is always a place with no zombies, and at that moment, the protagonist has just found that place. After catching his breath, he decides to go up to the roof to observe what kind of boss will appear. While going up, he comes across Mi-kyung at the top of the stairs. Talking with her, we learn that all the group members survived, but Kyung-hoon insisted that everyone should stay together. Exactly as the MC said, the zombies started being drawn to the group of more than 6 people, and while fleeing, they ended up arriving there. Kang explains to her that an enhanced zombie will soon appear there, and that after it is defeated, the remaining zombies will disperse. If they run away or hide during that, the tutorial will be over. When the boss appears, both of their powers are sealed, and he asks whether she was serious when she said she trusted him. After she confirms it, he asks her to distract the other zombies while he defeats the boss. While getting ready, he realized that his dimensional slot still worked. He deduces that the fortified zombies level was still lower than his, so his power upgrades weren't sealed properly. Taking advantage of that, he pulls out his bow and arrows and signals for Mi-kyung to start drawing the zombies' attention. The arrow is fired, but it ends up hitting the monster's shoulder due to the low visibility after the grape's effect wore off. The MC braces himself and jumps toward the boss, pinning it to the ground to finish the job. 10 points were gained and the powers were unsealed. But because of the level difference, no skill was acquired. Looking for some item around, the protagonist finds 2 bracelets that increase perception by 2. When Mi-kyung shows up saying she lured the zombies away and teleported back, he thinks those items were probably some tutorial completion bonus rather than a boss drop. The system notifies that he gained 17 more points, and Kang hands one of the bracelets to Mi-kyung. Wanting to meet up with the rest of the group, they head toward the gym, and inside they find Hyunjun waiting for them. After greeting each other, they start talking about everything that has happened so far. From this, we learn that Hyunjun and Yoo-hyun not only didn't receive items after finishing the tutorial, but also didn't find the checkpoint. Even after searching a lot, there wasn't a single place without zombies. This makes the MC think the tutorial was adjusting according to the level of whoever was doing it. In addition, we learn that it's now possible to earn points just by escaping zombies or helping other people escape, making it easier for non-combatants to get points. Finally, we also learn that everyone who survives the tutorial becomes awakened, so they start talking about what powers they got. Hyunjun got physical enhancement, which increases his strength and agility. Yoo-hyun got puppet maker, which lets him see, hear, and move through puppets when he closes his eyes. As for Mi-kyung, we already knew she had teleportation. But when it's time for the protagonist to reveal his power, he lies again. He thinks that if he tells the truth, the others might resent him or feel jealous of him. His plan is to reveal his true power only to his senior friends, whom he trusts unconditionally and who would be able to keep up with his level. Being completely ungrateful to the people who are trying to support him all the time and have already shown they trust him, he lies, saying his power is predicting attacks. This impresses Yoo-hyun, who asks if that doesn't basically make him untouchable. But the MC denies it, saying he can only predict the monster's attack path, similar to an after image. Quickly changing the subject, he asks what the group's next move will be. Hyunjun replies that he still has to discuss it with the rest of the group, but he intends to focus on surviving while leveling up. Based on the information the MC told him, he knows it's important to unlock the system shop in the auction house. After completing that objective, he intends to crush those bastards from the mountain gang. At that moment, Yoo-hyun asks Kang what level he is. Considering he soloed the tutorial boss, he should be able to hunt normal zombies easily too, so that made him curious. But before he could even keep talking, Hyunjun puts him in a chokehold. He and Mi-kyung seem to be trying to steer the topic away for him. After Yoo-hyun is knocked out, the MC decides to leave, but first he receives from Hyunjun a bag with some supplies and a plastic pair of binoculars. He says it's a thank you to Kang for all the times he helped them, and also asks if he ever said why he separated from his wife. Kang replies that he never said because he thought the reason was embarrassing, so he decides to tell them. He separated because he was afraid of losing muscle from her cooking. At the time, he was obsessed with not losing muscle, and that caused him various problems. Anyway, what he really wants to say is that everyone has things they don't feel comfortable telling others, but whenever he wanted to say something, he could count on them, just like he just did with his breakup story. Hearing that, the MC knows the two of them realized he was hiding something and still didn't pressure him. He then decides to grab Hyungjun's arm and tell him that one day the level difference between them won't be so big, that they would get stronger as they gained experience, so until then they should survive, until the day they could all walk side by side. After that, the protagonist says goodbye and leaves the place. Some time later we see him inside the portal, clearing snow. He would like to keep digging his trench, but with that weather it was better not to. Thinking about everything he had to do, he decides to take it one step at a time. Taking advantage of the fact that the zombies are diurnal, he decides to move that night to pick up some fireworks. As he was leaving, he sees the mountain gang up to no good, near his house. After Kim Chul found out that non-awakened people became awakened if they survived the tutorial, he decided to eliminate the MC as quickly as possible. The protagonist appears behind them, saying he wasn't expecting visitors. Kim Chul is startled and asks what he was doing outside at that hour. Kang replies that he was heading out to get fireworks. Already irritated, Kim Chul asks why at that hour, and the MC replies that it was to avoid zombies. He adds that as long as he avoided the skeletons and the guardians, he could move around as easily as he wanted. Kim Chul mocks him, saying that those monsters only start showing up at level 7, and he was at level 5. But the protagonist mocks him back, saying that even if he did his homework, he should have considered that In Hack's information might be wrong. The delinquent looks confused, and the MC says he doesn't need to understand, but thanks to him his plans have changed. He is going to postpone collecting the fireworks in order to raid their base. Just as a fight was about to start, everyone hears a noise coming from behind, and when they look, it's a guardian. The protagonist starts running and the gang chases him. When the one with speed powers is closing in, he slams face first into the invisible portal and falls to the ground. The guardian takes out the first one, and a skeleton appears right after to take out the second. With the explosion, Kim Chul falls to the ground. He even tries to attack the guardian, but it's useless, and with that, all three of them are finished off. From inside the portal, the MC starts firing at the guardian. Because of the iron-like collapse, the lead pellets do far less damage, but eventually the creature goes down. With the monster defeated, he reaches level 12, gains 20 points, and his territorial perception skill is strengthened after obtaining it again. Taking Kim Chul's bag, he heads to the mountain gang's base. Most of the items there were just alcohol and cigarettes. Nothing very useful, but they would probably sell well at the auction house in the future. In Guangali, he got the fireworks he wanted, and also managed to deal with some sleeping zombies. As a result, we see that the MC has reached level 14 and already has 324 points saved up. After organizing all the new items, he plans to visit Suyan, but a storm stops him. For 2 days, typhoons started passing through the city, so he was forced to focus on the other world. The MC finally finished digging the trench around the fence, and the snow melted as the weather started warming up again. Even so, the weather on Earth remained terrible. Still forced to stay in the other world, Kang decides to hunt the owlbear. He prepares by aiming carefully at the monster's head and lands a direct hit, but it's not enough to bring it down. Landing 2 more shots, one in the shoulder and one in the leg, he stops in front of the creature. When the owlbear charges toward him, he sets off one of the fireworks. The flash stuns the monster, and the biggest abuser of stun is about to claim another victim. Jumping onto the creature and pulling out a jackhammer, he finishes the fight. As a reward, he gains 25 points, the silent movement skill, and reaches level 15, gaining 5 more dimensional slots. The silent movement skill reduces all sounds produced by the user. On top of all the rewards, the MC knows that owlbear claws can be used as weapons, so he pulls out a chainsaw to harvest materials from the monster. Later, we see him eating some fried fish together with Dingo. He comments that his companion is already starting to grow and that, when that happens, they'll be able to fight together or even let him hunt on his own. Now fed, the MC decides to check the auction house unlocked at level 15. To the protagonist's surprise, someone had already listed an item for auction, and seeing the comments the person left, he thinks he knows who it is. When he sends a message, the confirmation appears. It was Cole Ho Gongju. The protagonist introduces himself as Kimbap Joa, and then Cole Ho Gongju says he knew they would meet again, that he had been waiting all this time for it. He also asks whether the MC is with the president, thinking the flyers dropped by airplanes were his doing. Tang says he passed some information to the government, but it was more like a few warnings than anything else. It seemed like someone with knowledge about the game was behind the government, but it wasn't him. He wasn't interested in revealing his power. Cole Ho Gongju agrees, saying that unless it's combat power, revealing your own power is basically signing your own death warrant. Right after saying that, he also says he thinks it's fine to tell his, since the two of them will end up traveling together anyway. Cole Ho Gongju's power is resurrection, and as long as he has enough points, he can use that power infinitely. His current level is 17, and his power also granted, as a bonus, various special resistances, such as physical and elemental resistance. When he asks what the MC's power is, he says he still can't say. Kang says that in fact he has trouble trusting people, to the point that he didn't even tell people close to him in real life about his powers. He says it's not that he doesn't trust Cole Ho Gongju, but he thinks it would be better to meet him in person to talk about it. Cole Ho Gongju says he understands the MC and asks him to check the auction house again. When the protagonist does so, he sees a magic ring that increases HP and strength by 2. He manages to buy it for only 10 points, as a gesture of sincerity. Remembering how they met early in the game, everything they went through and how close they were, the MC puts the owlbear claws and some grilled fish up for auction. Ho Bongju liked grilled fish and animal claws, so that was a sign of trust. He asks whether monsters had already started appearing in the MC's region, to which he replies no, that it was related to his power. Finally, Kang says he wouldn't mind if his friend came to Busan to meet him, but that he should wear clothes if he was going to do that. After the two finish talking, we see Koho Gongju finishing the fish the MC delivered. At that very moment, the storm finally passed, and the sun shone again. He doesn't know whether it was a coincidence, a divine sign, or even whether the friend who stayed in the survival life until the very end had finally become a god. The only thing he knew was that he had to go meet him. Then we see him jumping out the window straight onto a zombie. He grabs the zombie he just crushed, and uses it to smash all the others around, circling the entire neighborhood. Making that absurd mess, he realizes he has ended up back in front of his own hideout. That's how we find out that Koho Gongju's biggest problem is having a completely terrible sense of direction. 3 days have passed since the typhoons disappeared. In that time, the Academy group began to gradually adapt to the apocalypse. Yu Hyun, who was level 1, reached level 5, and his power now works at a much greater distance. They also moved to a place closer to the protagonist's home, and Kyu Hoon started dating Kim Bora. Hyun Jun also managed to reach level 10, unlocking the system shop. Whenever news like that came in, the MC responded by sending locations they could go to in order to keep leveling up safely. He also kept in touch with our show-off Zoro, but the replies were very slow. Only the zombies knew why. It is explained that each level from 15 onward requires double the experience of the previous level, so from then on it would be extremely difficult to keep progressing. While looking at his status window, the protagonist thinks it wouldn't be impossible to reach level 16 if he focused entirely on it, but he still has many other things to do. Setting that aside for now, he heads into the portal. Talking with the beetles, he finds out it was they who made his mithril knife. Not believing in their ability, he hands over a coin which is soon turned into a small knife. Seeing the quality of that small blade, he asks why the mithril knife was so poorly made, which leaves the little ones devastated. Not understanding why they suddenly got so sad, he asks them to draw what happened. Thus, we find out that the goblins keep attacking the beetles and getting in their way. The protagonist asks them to mark the location of the goblin camp and says he will soon eliminate them all, as long as they keep bringing him items. In addition, he asks them to make something for him right then, assuring them the reward will be worth it. The request is accepted, and we soon see the MC, sometime later, hunting zombies together with Dingo. The zombies are already stronger than they were at the beginning of everything. But even so, he kept clearing the path to Su-yeon's home until the durability tag appeared on his staff. Arriving there, he thinks that even if Su-yeon hasn't turned into a zombie, that location worries him. That place was near one of My Dream's bunkers, and one of the government's temporary shelters. In other words, it was the ideal place for constant fights between survivors trying to take it over. After climbing up the elevator ropes, the MC reaches the address he received and knocks on the door. We hear someone complaining, saying that she had warned she would be at the meeting point at the right time, and that they shouldn't have gone there while a PK was on the loose in the area. And when the door viewer is opened, we see that the one saying all that was Su-yeon, who thought it would be someone else at the door. She gets curious about why he came there, and he replies that he still owed her for the medicine she gave him. More important than that, he asks about the PK she mentioned, and with that, our big friend asks him to come inside so they can talk better. She explains that 3 groups started living around the government's temporary shelter. Group C, with at least 10 people, suggested to the other 2 groups that they invade the temporary shelter and split the supplies there among themselves. When the 2 groups refused, a PK showed up and eliminated members only from the 2 groups that refused Group C's proposal. The protagonist thinks that judging by the group's size and Su-yeon's description, the leader of Group C is My Dream, and the PK is one of his subordinates. If the assumption is correct, the fact that he tried to persuade the other groups indicates there must be some condition or restriction on using his mind control power. The MC just doesn't understand why try to invade the temporary shelter at that moment, since it will be open to everyone in the future. Confirming that the only doctor who has appeared so far has healing powers, he asks how leveling up has been going. She replies that even though she earns a few points helping others, leveling up has been simply impossible. This reinforces the protagonist's hypothesis. Awakened people who don't have powers useful in combat can hardly level up. With that in mind, My Dream is probably interested in the temporary shelter to obtain materials that help him solve that. Something that deals area damage would be ideal for leveling up quickly, and adding that need to the difficulty of maintaining a large group, his interest starts to make sense. After reaching that conclusion, the MC remembers that Su-yeon had somewhere to go before he arrived. He asks if she was going to farm, but she denies it. Su-yeon thinks someone is going to receive a confession. She admits that all the members of her group are idiots. Even though they aren't bad people, they all seem to think only about carnal acts. Right after that, she asks what Kang intends to do at that moment. He replies that he's going to take a look at the temporary shelter. Su-yeon immediately gets worried, but he reassures her, saying he'll only observe, avoiding drawing Group C's attention. He finishes by handing her a luminous stone and saying that, if everything goes well, he'll pay the price for the medicines with interest. Meanwhile, we see My Dream and confirm that the PK is his doing. One of the subordinates reports that Group B has already started moving its supplies after the latest eliminations. Group A still doesn't seem to have made any significant moves, so they intend to eliminate more members of that group. Since the members of Team A move separately, not all of them are being tracked, but one member was found in a nearby area, and that member is Su Yuan, who has just become the PK's new target. Right after that, we also see that My Dream is extremely worried about the MC. It is shown that even if his subordinates do the dirty work, he gets absolutely nothing from it. Just from having paralyzing poison even before the apocalypse began, he already has an idea of how dangerous the protagonist is. Besides, not having access to the auction house may cause the other group leaders to look down on him. At that moment, we see some of the subordinates bringing captured zombies, and him using a Molotov to finish them off. At that moment, My Dream reached level 9, and used his power to give new orders to his subordinates. They were to figure out how to open the temporary shelter, keep bringing zombies for him to finish off, and find out where the protagonist was. Little did he know that Kang was right there, listening to everything from inside the portal. Meanwhile, Su Yuan really was receiving a confession. She scolds the dreamer, saying he shouldn't be doing that when a PK is prowling around the area. He justifies himself by saying he used his power to confirm that the PK wasn't in the area. But just as Su Yuan was about to leave, he feels his heart starting to beat strangely. This is a sign that there is a PK near them. Using his power to try to locate it, the love-struck guy says the PK was already right in front of them. And since there are at least 3 people in the same place, the barrier rises, trapping everyone there. Su Yuan tells the extra to get ready, while the PK heads toward them. The first attack comes. She dodges and shines a flashlight right into his eye. He is stunned, but instead of taking advantage, she's just happy it worked and immediately takes a hit to the stomach. She really needs to learn from the protagonist. All beat up, she asks the love-struck guy for help, but he has already run off to try to save himself. While she thinks she did the right thing by dumping that loser, and that now it was all over, the real hero arrives to handle the job. He arrives already parrying the incoming attack and returning the favor with a hit to the stomach that our little healer had taken. Like a perfect gentleman, he extends his hand to help her up, while saying that it still wasn't her time. Sometime later, we see Su Yuan healing and listening to the information the MC found out by spying on My Dream. We also see that the little simp has already kicked the bucket. In the meantime, the MC says that thanks to all the physical advantages PKs have, it would be impossible to beat him at that moment. Besides, when someone is finished off and the barrier disappears, a wall of zombies completely surrounding it blocks any escape route. However, there is a bug to escape this situation. Kang explains that when that loud heartbeat happens again and the PK's eyes glow, the barrier will shrink. At that moment, a gap will appear, and Su Yuan must take the chance to escape via the sky bridge that connects the building they're in to another one. This opportunity only appears once, so he will give a signal at the right time. She worries about him, but he says he can't be helped. PKs gain random powers, so to avoid variables, someone needs to stay behind and hold him off. After putting Su Yuan in position, the protagonist waits for the PK, who arrives smashing through the wall. The MC dodges the first attack and counters with a shield bash that lands cleanly, but does nothing. Probably because of My Dream's brainwashing effect, the PK's movement patterns are simple. The problem is that as the fight goes on, he gets stronger and stronger. Kang also can't kill him there, because he is part of his plan to eliminate My Dream. After some time of a balanced fight with the protagonist dodging and the PK taking hits, Phase 2 begins, with him becoming much faster. Starting to get pressured, the MC pulls out a glowing stone and detonates it in the PK's eyes. Taking advantage of the stun, he starts running to buy time. Su Yuan shouts, warning that the barrier is shrinking, but he says it's still not the right moment. At that moment, he is caught by the PK, who starts pressuring him again. He keeps tanking the attacks with the shield until the heart makes the noise again. The transition to Phase 3 begins, and that is the moment to signal Su Yuan. She starts running across the bridge as the barrier shrinks and manages to escape. As Kang tries to run to do the same, the PK breaks the floor to reach him. When he is about to take an attack, we see that he was already inside the portal with a handgun in his hand. He fires, and then we see him running out of the portal, cutting through the wall of zombies. Grabbing Su Yuan by the arm, he starts running, saying that the PK is still alive and that they have to get out of there fast. The moment the barrier disappears completely, all the zombies will start coming after them. She calls him home, but he refuses, saying they're going to the temporary shelter. The moment the barrier disappears, all the PK's negative effects also disappear, and that should include My Dream's mind control. Taking the PK to the temporary shelter is going to be the perfect owlbear to get likes on this video.